Lamia.
Hello, and welcome to the Saladcast on Sunday, the 25th of February, 2024. I'm your host, Dan Train. Joining me today, Zachary Burgess.
But not a llama.
And Robert Kemp.
Lawrence of my Lamia.
You spell it with two L's, and then it's
it's
a half llama, half snake.
I guess, yeah. The snake lady.
That's what one L implies, apparently.
yeah, I guess.
Single
My
L
theory. Lady.
Has llama got two L's because it's like Romanized from some South American language or something? But even then, why would you pick two L's?
Well, I guess you wouldn't want to. Like, if a Welsh person sees it, do they think it's like a llama? Like,
maybe.
Or is it just like it had it was a contraction of like L llama, like EL.
oh, there was something else in there.
Yeah, it's like they forgot that extra letter and then it just got mushed into one word.
Oh, I see. Like, oh, this is El Llama, the legendary beast of the South. It would be El Lamo then, wouldn't it? Or something like.
Well, yes, whatever the grammatical context of that would be.
Have you ever heard of guard llamas?
Yeah.
Where they get a llama to defend a flock of sheep from...
Is that like
predators?
a terrible spin-off of Star Fox Guard?
Star llama.
Star Llama. Yeah.
I mean, that's what you want, the crossover between Star Fox and Lamatron.
Oh, damn. Can you imagine how mental that would be? I mean, I'm quite looking forward to like when a bit of communication happens, and then just that dumbass picture of a llama pops up, and then the little thing goes.
Yep, clearly.
When's the Jeff Minter collection or whatever coming out?
Oh, the sort of Well, apparently you can get Tempest 4000 is available somewhere at the moment. I think if you've got Prime, you can claim it for free or something. Yeah, I don't know, because aren't they sort of giving Minter the same treatment they did to Karateka or something recently?
Yeah, here we go. Llama Soft, the Jeff Minter story, 13th of March. Okay,
Nice.
comes with Grid Runner remastered, which is good because it's one of those games that I managed to get on the iPhone, and it's one of those ones that no longer exists.
Yeah,
on
never got updated, so it doesn't run.
So annoying.
He was behind Lamatron, wasn't he? Actual Lamatron.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Because as long as that comes back, because like people love Robotron, right? And it's like they don't know what they're missing, right? Lamatron is like is vastly superior.
You get Lamatron, you get Sheep in Space, Andy's Attack of the Mutant Camels, Mega Galactic Llamas Battle at the Edge of Time.
Most of those I don't actually
more.
know. Yeah, I mean, obviously Tempest is the obvious one. Space Giraffes is one of the more recent ones.
All the Minter classics you've ever heard of, and several you probably haven't.
Good.
Sweet.
I will bleed from my eyeballs.
Yes.
Color cycle my face. And play some Japanese Eurobeat or something over the top. Make it. It's basically It's almost like meme lighting the game.
Pretty much. What's it? Bisexual lighting, right?
Wait,
That's not nearly extreme enough for Lamatron. Two colours? What are you talking about?
Pink and purple and blue.
Insufficient.
Definitely insufficient.
You need every colour. Make it on Atari and then just use the decompression as the colour background.
Right, yeah.
That was always fun.
Yeah, didn't they? Wasn't that in like Yar's Revenge or something where they used a noise trick on the Atari to because it had like Yar's Revenge had like a shield pattern down the middle, but it was like all sort of noisy looking, and it's
right.
And it's theoretically not possible to create that effect if you're using the Atari properly. Like, so they managed to create a noisy channel or something on a specific area of the screen, and it just makes this sort of fuzzy shield effect. Oh, technology.
Yeah.
was an awful bit of equipment, wasn't it? Really, like you can't really go back to the 2600 and enjoy it. I think
No,
it's just that little bit too old. I think.
Yeah, but I think you can say that about everything at this point.
I don't know. You can enjoy the NES.
Yeah, I definitely.
Well, no, I think it's there's a step back down again once you get to 3D. Like it's hard to go back and enjoy N64 stuff now.
Oh, I don't know. No, I mean, I'm planning to get my N64 out of the loft at some point, like when I'm back on my retro stuff. But you know, because I don't know, get the PS1 out was fun.
Yeah, but it's a bit like clearly like Yoshi's Island is like fancier graphically in some ways than like Ridge Racer or something. You know,
sure. Well, it's more polished in the 2D space.
You could vaguely see what's going on.
Yeah. And Ridge was pretty polished for what 3D could do at that point in time.
Yeah, indeed. I'm sure that choosing that as an example of a good-looking one.
Yeah.
But yeah, and also it's cheating if you're playing it in like an emulator where you can just up-res it.
Sure. Yeah,
that doesn't count.
And turn off all of PlayStation's like idiosyncrasies with the like, you know, the warping and all that stuff, which, you know,
even if you do that, it still looks harsher than it did on a CRT or whatever. Often, like
it's a different kind of harsh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean you can fake it to some degree, but you're right, it doesn't quite capture how it used to look.
I was very impressed by whatever emulator setting you had when we did Ocarina of Time.
Right,
it really
what's that called? Angry Lion, I think, graphics mode that is in whatever core we were using in a RetroArch.
Yeah, it really looked a lot like it used to.
Yeah, I mean, I believe the Angry Lion is like specifically for, you know, designed for accuracy. It doesn't up-res. It actually can't do that. And I think it's the only one that actually renders some of the effects in F-Zero X correctly. Like there's like when the menu transitions in F-Zero X, it does like a full frame buffer kind of warpy thing, and I don't think any of the other emulators are capable of doing that. So yeah, go check out our video series, on, Ocarina of Time. We did a complete playthrough on that there YouTube.
Happy Saladcast.
Zach's dying. Give him a minute.
Yep. A more rare cough than my regular cough. I'm not ill though. That's not...
How's your health? How's our health? Is everything all right?
No, it's like when I cough more, that means it's more normal. It's when I cough less, it's when I get ill.
No, I see. So like,
we've already determined that.
Yeah. You have a period of time of being on top of the world. It's like, it's coming.
Well, no, it's not really just it's coming. It's just that the cough stops when I'm ill in another way.
No, I see. Different. Okay. I've done a fair amount of drinking over the last 2 days, so I guess my stomach's not 100% on form today. But that ain't gonna stop me from getting pizzed.
Naturally.
I mean, that's what you need.
Speaking of bad food ideas related to pizza, even
I
noticed that we got like the random Domino's advertisement for our door, and one of the things that they're currently doing is cream egg cookie, which you might think, if you're familiar with the cream egg McFlurry, you're thinking like, okay, so there's chunks of chocolate and cream egg sauce in it, and that's how you make the McFlurry.
Yeah, sounds pretty nice.
So you might think cookie like that, right? But no, it's a whole cream egg in cookie dough, just cooked like that.
Oh wow! What? So it's like a cream egg
encased.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the cookie even like spread. It's like it's flat, but then there's just a huge mound in the middle where the cream egg is.
So the cookie isn't even spherical. It's like made its own stand.
Yeah,
but they're too big, aren't they? Full-on cream egg.
Yeah, you would think so.
Somehow.
And how the fuck are you going to eat that? And it's like you're eating a hot cream egg. That's just going to.
Well, is it hot by the time it arrives?
Well, I mean, as hot as anything from Domino's.
I mean, I guess if you're doing Domino's properly, by the time you've eaten the pizza, it might have cooled to an adequate temperature.
True. But still, it will have been at the very least melted and re-solidified, which probably won't help either.
Or it is still like vaguely molten just because, cream eggs, right? They're kind of already a bit gungy. Well, yeah.
I mean,
you would think picture this.
You would think that any amount of heat would make the middle of a cream egg even more runny.
Right, yeah. I'm sort of imagining it a bit like maybe to help visualize this. Like, the sort of like pods that the alien face huggers come out of.
Right.
It sort of looked like that, but in cookie form.
The cookie is a bit more expansive. Like they've tried to give you a reasonable amount of cookie compared to the amount of egg, which basically means that the cookie has to extend out a bit further.
I've found a picture, and okay. I like their description. We've taken our famous Domino's cookies and stuffed them with a whole Cadbury's cream egg. No, really, a whole one. It kind of looks like, obviously it's different on the outside, but it kind of reminds me, looking at it in cross-section, because they've cut one in half, obviously, so you can see the cross-section. It reminds me of a deep-fried Mars bar.
Yeah. No, that's immediately what I was thinking when Zach said that. But, like, I don't know, at least it's sweet encased in sweet rather than whatever the hell category. I suppose batter can be sweet, right? But from a chip shop, it's not going to be that kind of batter, right? It's going to be like the same stuff you put your sausage in.
I'm loving the Google results. There's the Domino's one at the top, and then it's like Sky News, conservative peer outraged by Domino's new cream egg.
Obviously.
And then the Sun, quote, I can confirm these are banging. Scream. Wow.
Banging Domino's desserts.
The Tory peer criticises Domino's and calls them egregious.
Yeah, good one.
Deary me.
Very funny. That's some journalism, that is.
Impressive journalism. Do you think they did it more for clicks than for actual?
Well, yes, obviously. I mean, you ask that question about any media, basically, at this point.
Do you remember when we were in, was it Byron Burger in Ipswich? And there was those like Franken monster milkshakes or whatever they were, which was like, and the waiter was like, "Don't get that." I think it was your birthday or something. They were like, "Yeah, don't order that." We tried to order it, and they were like, "Yeah, don't do that."
I don't remember them. I don't remember what those were.
I can't remember what was in them, but it was like a whole glass overflowing with like ice cream and chocolate and things, basically nominally a drink, but not really.
Yeah, I don't think I would have chosen one of those. That seems a bit much. I mean, I mean, a milkshake on its own at Byron is often a bit much. I mean, they're delicious, but oh my god, the sugar rush you get. Someone was trying to tell me the other day that a sugar rush isn't a thing. Like it's not actually like how it works, and I'm like
how it's described,
and I'm like bollocks. I've definitely I've eaten enough food where I've got a bit buzzy. It's like,
blood sugar is a real thing, like levels. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and surely that's why it's a sugar rush, right? Like my blood sugar is high because I've just eaten a whole bunch of sugary stuff.
I think
or like had like an excess quantity of full fat Coke.
I don't think blood sugar necessarily translates to like hyperactivity. Like blood sugar being high might just be bad.
But then what's causing the buzziness?
Psychological effects.
I mean, maybe, yeah. I mean, it's not like I don't have a few of those.
I mean, maybe it's the case that, I mean, obviously low blood sugar is bad and you're going to get, you need to eat
pretty
something.
Weak. Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously that whole system can go wrong and you can get diabetic, and then you really need to pay attention to the levels. But if you're not diabetic, I wonder if it's just that, it's a myth that something sweet will spike it and then crash it. And maybe the body actually regulates it a bit better than that.
But that's what diabetes is though, right? Diabetes doesn't regulate that.
Exactly. Exactly, yeah.
But surely even if it spikes, it takes a bit of time for the process, the glucose to glycogen conversion takes a little while to actually happen. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's like part of it is of the conception of it is not right. But I'm sure. I mean, blood sugar is definitely real.
Presumably, there's like your blood sugar can be low, and that's bad. But there must be a literal physical upper limit to how high it can go, just by how fast your body can process the sugar and get it into the bloodstream.
Yeah.
So, like, you can't just keep eating sugar and then really have a sugar rush.
It's not like, it's not like injecting freaking heroin or something where you can overdo it.
Well, sure. Inject the sugar directly into your bloodstream.
I mean, you can overdo anything if you try, right? That's not. You can die from chocolate.
Well, yes, but that's not. It's not going to be. Well, it might be because of blood sugar, but that's not going to be infinite blood sugar.
Well, yeah, I'm not gonna have just caramel running through my veins.
I mean, presumably that could be part of the problem. It could fuck with all the osmosis or something.
Oh, yeah, maybe. Yeah.
We don't know shit about biology.
No.
Just that we have shit. We've proven that.
Sugar does not cause hyperactivity in children. Double-blind trials have shown no difference in behavior between children giving sugar-full or sugar-free diets, even in studies specifically looking at children with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not talking about sugar rushes, is it?
It's true.
That's a different thing. So maybe they were getting confused about what that actually was. So if Badger decides to have a bit of cake, it's probably not the end of the world. Is what that's saying.
I think it's fine.
Maybe.
It's not like we have to go, oh God, hold on to your butts.
Well, I mean,
this is going to be a rough half hour.
Presumably, you actually specifically have to not do that in order to prevent the psychological effects that might cause it to happen.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Don't placebo him into being hyperactive by accident.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe if we project the terror of a sugar rush, he will actually just go mental.
That was the food segment.
That was the food.
Yeah,
segment.
Let's move on quick.
Before we all get very, very hungry. Talk about food, though.
Oh,
Just one more on the food misconceptions list here on Wikipedia. Eating normal amounts of soy does not cause hormonal imbalance. So there you go. So don't worry.
Oh, so there's no such thing as a soy boy.
No. Soy boys. No, obviously not.
It's lifestyle only, yo.
Carrots do not enhance night vision. Yeah. Etc.
Oh, yeah, I think that one's been known for quite some time.
Yeah. Well, that was propaganda, wasn't it, from the Second World War? From the
was
British.
it? Well, yeah.
Yeah, because they
these people that
didn't
eat
want
vegetables, basically.
Yeah, well, the Germans supposedly didn't know that they developed radar, so they were just like, we're just eating lots of carrots so we can see you in the dark.
Nice. I was just going to say shout out to the schnitzel burger that we had Friday night.
Oh yeah,
Shout
schnitzel
out.
forever.
Schnitzel
Stoke
forever. That was
tasty schnitzel.
That was pretty good. That was pretty good.
Yeah, it works well as a burger, doesn't it? Because obviously you can have it as just flat schnitzel.
But it's basically it's basically a chicken burger, but it's just just done in a different way, right? And it's just slightly different way that schnitzel is, and it's like, well, obviously the crispiness is going to work in a burger, obviously.
Yeah, it's nice. Fold it up, put some nice sauces on there.
Oh,
yeah.
Shout out.
Yeah, so you're going to visit then, Rob?
I did. Yeah, I went to downtown. That their land and saw your Rivendell in the flesh, in the plasticky Lego-y flesh.
Yeah.
That is pretty big. It's pretty sweet.
It's cool, isn't it?
Yeah. I like, as I say, shout out to you. I like your Mustang as well. The Lego Mustang's pretty cool. I like
Yeah, the Mustang is cool. It actually has some features where you can make it look more kind of like it's been jacked up in the back and
really?
a drag racer and stuff. Yeah, it's got a nitrous tank that you can put in the back and stuff.
What do they call it when they're when cars bounce on their front rails? Like when they do that with low riders, I suppose. Back in the Snoop Dogg days. I say back in the Snoop Dogg days. He's still alive. We're always in the Snoop Dogg days.
Yeah, Snoop Dogg forever.
Yeah, whatever they called that. It'd be fun if you could do that, actually have it bounce, just casually.
Yeah, they should make a lowrider. That should be a Technic thing though, rather than a Lego
Maybe.
one, right? So you could have it as an actual
So it could move.
feature that it bounces like crazy. That would be so cool because they've got pneumatics and stuff. Because I presume they're pneumatic powered, right?
The pneumatics would be nearly fast enough to make that realistic. It would be
make
super
it
slow
fast.
to be like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have to actually take off, right? It's got to actually bounce.
Yeah, it would have to be faked. It would be like
right, the whole thing is on a.
There'd be a spinner underneath that just whacks against the table, basically, and then you'd fake the suspension looking longer by using weak springs or whatever.
I guess you could put the whole car on just a big.
Yeah, on a lever.
Yeah, and move it upwards. So then it would look like, I guess, real sized bouncing. Because the problem is, I guess, if you do it small scale, it's just going to bounce through. Like the bounce is going to look too fast.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, probably.
Because physics, because pendulum physics, I suppose. But that'd be cool. Cut the check, Lego.
Yeah, I don't know if they could make it not dangerous for like a toy that actually had a good effect. Maybe if it was something you could
not dangerous. Like, you reckon there's going to be like serious injury from a lowrider bouncing on your hand, or?
Well, yeah, from an individual piece of like if it has enough power to boost.
Oh, what to actually like
thing? It could splinter
something off. And...
Yeah, I don't know.
I'd be sure that's just the danger with every Lego thing ever, that something is going to potentially ping if you abuse it.
Yeah, well, I guess they make those spring-loaded stuff so that they're as safe as possible for kids.
I did end up watching one of the stupid things that came up on my Facebook feed was someone trying to make like a transport vehicle in Lego, but testing various different variants of it, like just to see if how the suspension would work on rough terrain. And they'd made like a rolling road basically with obstacles on it for this thing to run over. Yeah, that rabbit hole that video went up for quite some time, and I wasn't expecting it. I'm like just sat there watching it on Facebook, like on my phone.
I may have seen that channel.
Like, yeah, I may have seen that channel as well.
Yeah.
Very rarely actually watch any of those videos.
They test it until it fails, and then they make a new thing, and then test that until that fails, etc., and repeat.
Well, kind of. No, I think this was more like it was almost like a scientific sort of approach. It's like, here's a bunch of vehicles we've made with different techniques. We're going to test them all on the same thing and measure how much of the load we lose.
Yeah, I think the last one of those that I watched was like spinning different Lego wheels to see how much RPM they can withstand.
Yeah.
There we go. That's your Lego minute.
Yeah, we've done food, we've done Lego. What's next?
What's next? Should we talk about... I was going to talk about something, but I've completely forgotten. I think it was like some sort of poopy TV rant, but, standard for this podcast, but it's too poopy to even remember.
I can't remember the TV rant.
I wrote down about how there was another instance of ChatGPT or whatever mysteriously going wrong.
Oh yeah, I heard about it. Wasn't there some kind of like went just mad for a while?
Yeah,
like
it was like people called it a stroke because it kind of looked like that, where
right.
It's like it's sentences that are structured like sentences, but all the words are wrong. It's like it looks like perfectly well formed sentences, except none of the words make any sense.
Interesting. So was that like a phenomenon that happened to everyone all at once? Like for some reason,
like it was in the actual, remote server or whatever that's sending all the data out,
right? So like,
and they had to revert it.
So just one of, I guess presumably what this must have only affected one of the services, right?
Maybe, but yeah.
I don't know. I get the impression they don't change the underlying model very much because it gradually evolves. But what they do change is, they change the rules engine that lets you, that determines which things to actually answer. And then they also change, the key thing is they change the internal bit of prompt text that you can't see, that says you are a helpful assistant. You need to answer questions in a friendly way and shit like that. They mess around with that, and that screws up all answers when they mess it up.
But yeah, it's like as usual, the question that you would never, like, just like last time when it stopped, when it just refused to complete tasks previously, and they had to fuck around with it on the back end to fix that. Where it was like you'd ask it for a list and it wouldn't actually give you the whole list and it would tell you to go and do the work yourself.
Excellent.
That was funny. But in this case, it's the same thing where it's just like, the question is how it is, like, what happened, because it was either it just evolved that way and then it broke, or was it actually like a actual malicious attack basically, or not necessarily malicious, accidentally malicious. Like they have those images that are specifically designed to fuck up the AI scraping, right?
Yeah.
You can feed it a specific image and it just ruins the whole model, basically.
Or
So I was wondering,
or there were or the
Poisoning.
yeah,
or the null face lady, right? The way that you could like manipulate things to sort of, if everything tended towards 0 for some reason, you'd get that null face.
But yeah, I was wondering if that was like, is there a text version of that, basically, where you could feed it a bit of text that just breaks the whole model somehow? Quite possibly.
Yeah. But Dan and I were talking about this, right? Like, because these models they're not actively learning, right, from from user inputs.
Well, mostly anyway.
No.
I'm sure it might be scraping some data.
Well, I reckon that's probably not the model itself, right? They're probably feeding it back into it to train the next version of the model, right, based on stuff like that. So, but we were talking about like being polite to the model, right? Is that a way of like reinforcing when it's done a good job, right? If you actually tell it, thanks, that was a good answer.
That is. I mean, I think there was a period in the earlier times when that was a thing, where they were like, we need to actually, this model can actually reinforce it from actual, well, I mean, that's why you have, I mean, it's not exactly the same, but they have the button where it's like, this answer was not actually what I asked or whatever.
Yeah, they have that. Yeah.
Which is even funny because that really doesn't work when you just prompt that, right? Like when you say, it's like, no, that's not what I asked. Like if you type that in, often the engine just sort of ignores that and doesn't really know what to.
Yeah.
Goes off on a different incorrect tangent.
It does apologize. Like if it gets something
sure,
clearly wrong, and
just...
you're like, and I'm like, no, what I don't do is there's no reason not to, but the temptation is to be like, no, you moron. It's like this. Yeah. And then it does apologize. It just say sorry for the confusion. Like, you're right. This isn't like that. And then gives you something hopefully more helpful.
Sometimes it will say it isn't like, well, I guess it's just trying to agree with you, right? Like the model is too friendly. It's like, it's
a little too friendly.
Like I tried looking up a pretty, what is probably a pretty esoteric problem in Windows to do with work, and it had absolutely no idea what I was talking about.
Really?
And gave me a pretty boilerplate answer, and I'm like, oh, okay, because I wasn't getting anywhere with a traditional search, so I thought I'd ask
give it a try,
and it didn't. It too almost gave me a bit of a boilerplate answer. So I tried, and I just couldn't get it to understand what I was asking. Didn't try too hard, in fairness, because it was like, well, if it's not going to get it right first time, I'm not going to put the time into trying to finesse my prompt to make it understand me. Because that's what I do with Google.
Yeah. It's just, I suppose, that with Google, you're starting again every time, but it at least can take enough tokens that it includes the previous part of the conversation.
In theory.
So it has that context. That's what makes it Chat GPT, right? That was what made it exciting, was that it has the context of the rest of the conversation.
Yeah, in theory. I've found that to be flaky. Like its idea of context, or any engine's idea of context is just, it forgets things. Obviously, it's like, no, let's talk about that other thing, and it goes, what other thing? That kind of thing.
What, from the same conversation?
Yeah, I've never been that impressed with its context awareness. Like it just always seems like it's not. Never seems to quite remember exactly what you've talked about before, especially with the image generation side of things, right? Whenever you ask it, like, oh, now take that and change it in this way, and it just doesn't do it, that kind of stuff, or take that guy over there and modify it, and it's like, no, don't know what you're talking about. Or if you want to go back a step, right? Like you do something and you modify it, and then go, no, go back to that original one and let's work from there. It's like, no, I can't do that.
Yes, that information doesn't get saved. It's like, we generated this, but this is purely an outbound info stream, and then it's gone.
In image land, anyway, it's particularly dumb, it seems, at the moment. I wonder, we were so Dan and I were looking at like Sora, right, the new video creator.
Yeah.
And we were having we were talking about like, oh, does this mean the death of the bad AI, of the really bad AI ads? The funny ones, the ones you want. Like, are we not going to get another terrible Pepsi ad?
Yeah.
or hilarious Pepsi ad, I should say. Like, have we gone past that point mostly? But then I was just thinking, like, actually, surely we'll just get to the point where we can ask these video engines to make one in the style of a bad AI video.
yeah.
So maybe we could generate, maybe we could generate terrifying adverts for things still, but because we've asked for it.
I don't think Sora is fully past that point, judging by some of those
videos. No. There's still some things that are wrong, but it's
mad enough to be funny. That's the problem.
I don't know. The one with the infinitely regenerating wolf pups was pretty ridiculous.
Very funny, I guess. And they are showing, although those are the ones they've shown that are obviously handpicked or whatever. Like Sam Altman has been responding to things on Twitter and putting prompts in and then sharing the videos within 10 minutes or whatever, however long it was. So, it's, evidently it isn't all entirely handpicked from hundreds of attempts,
I want the option to basically, because he was talking about like engines like hallucinate after a while, right? They get away from the original content, the original ask, and it's like
it only does 1 minute, right?
Well, yeah, and a bit of me just wants to turn that limitation off. Keep going.
Just keep going.
I want to see what you really think about Sora. If I ask you this, what do you really want to do? Give me minute 5.
Well, I mean,
don't generate the whole sequence. Just give me minute 5 to 6 or something that would have been in the sequence.
Well, maybe you could just trigger to do that by feeding it the last frame of the previous thing as the prompt for the next bit.
Oh, maybe, yeah. Just keep it going.
Just take this image and create another minute of
I haven't
footage.
even told you what this is. Just roll with it. Go. That could be pretty funny. Yeah, what if the last frame is one of the messed up ones? Like a dog with 3 mouths or something.
It's probably quite likely.
Yeah.
Still.
And then you feed that in and it goes, well, here's your Kerberos video. Enjoy. The death of humanity is coming.
Speaking of
video
game news.
Video game news. Well, there was a Nintendo, not Nintendo Direct.
Yep.
A partner Direct. Of which very little of interest happened. Yep. In fact, I barely took a note. I guess the one thing that was vaguely interesting is confirmation of a couple of games that are belonging to of a certain Microsoft that are coming to Switch. That being Grounded. That was an Obsidian joint, was it? I can't remember. Anyway, the sort of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids survival game will find a home on Switch, and also Pentiment, which seems like that's a brilliant choice of something that
pretty obvious.
Yeah,
good Switch game. So
this all sort of feeds back to I guess in between last episode and this episode, Microsoft did announce exactly what all these rumors about them going multi-platform actually mean, and it's a very limited trial at the moment, in essence. So I actually don't know what the 4th game is, but they basically said there are going to be 4 games that we're going to put on other platforms. And Starfield definitely will not be one of them. They said that, and we're just gonna. Yeah, we're just going to see. We're just going to test the water. We're going to see how these do on other platforms, and it's I guess it sort of makes sense, right? Put everything out on Game Pass first. Let us subscribers get the benefit of anything Microsoft want to put out first. And if it's I want to say maybe, and this is going to come out a little bit harsh, maybe if it's a slightly underperforming game for them, maybe they want to recoup a little bit of finance on it, make a little bit more moolah. Put it on other platforms. I don't think anyone's going to mind.
No.
And more power to them. I think it's fair to do that. So the third game that they've said is Hi-Fi Rush. Those rumors were of course true. But it's only actually been properly announced for PlayStation, despite the rumor stating it was going to come to Switch. But absolutely no sign of that happening. So people are now suggesting, maybe it will come to Nintendo, but maybe that they're holding off till Switch 2. Maybe the Switch couldn't quite handle Hi-Fi Rush in the way
Or maybe they just didn't finish in time.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
Maybe they just need to delay that version a little bit more.
Maybe needs a bit more time. But the PlayStation announcement has already happened. Anyway, that's all that really was in the end. It's not the big. Microsoft is still going to be in the console business. They assured us that the next version of Xbox will be a huge technological leap, because of course they'd say that.
Of course.
And that's it. That's all there is to all of that hoo-ha. There will still be first-party Microsoft games that are exclusive, but there may be a few that aren't. That's
Which is nice to hear.
Yeah, it's no real bad news for anyone, really.
No, it's all good.
The only other two things I've picked out from this thing was we got a little look at the Battlefront Classic collection, because
what?
The Star Wars Battlefront.
Right.
They're putting out the originals, not the modern ones, not the Frostbite engine powered ones.
They should just put out the one that got cancelled or whatever. That was nearly done. Which one was that?
But that must have been 3, because 1 and 2 definitely came out. I don't know if they've. But anyway, they're putting those classic collection. That's coming to Switch. We know that's coming to PlayStation as well. Presumably, there's an Xbox version. I don't know. I don't know. It just looked. It's weird, isn't it, to be like, hey, look at this game. They look right jank now, because it's not really been not what's been done to it. It seems.
Maybe it won't come out like the other Star Wars games didn't.
Oh yeah, the was it the KOTOR? Is the KOTOR remake still? No, the remake isn't happening anymore. Is it? But the remaster sort of came out.
Mate, I don't remember which one was which.
I can't remember. There was something about KOTOR.
Yes,
right? Something failed.
One of them didn't come out.
And there's a brand new Super Monkey Ball.
Really?
Yep. Called Banana Rumble. Because they put out basically a sort of remake collection of the first few Monkey Ball games last year on Switch. And this is basically more of the same, the same graphical style they used for that remake, which, isn't as good as how the original looked, honestly. The original had style. This just looks kid friendly. It's doesn't capture my imagination. But yeah, I mean, it's just interesting. There's a brand new Super Monkey Ball, and it's got a new mechanic. You can charge up a boost. You can basically, they call it a spin dash as well, which is funny. So I don't even know if Sonic is cameoing in it, which that she should have done really if they're going to call it a goddamn spin dash. They don't spin in the right way though. They sort of spin
horizontally.
Yeah. Even though it has the action of you spinning forwards, right? It didn't look like a Sonic on the spot spin. I didn't see any monkey target in that trailer.
All that matters, obviously.
So there's that. Gearbox is in the news this week. Everyone's favourite game creator.
Favourite, yeah.
Yeah. Because their Borderlands trailer came out. It looks like a sort of semi-bad, mid to middling video game adaptation. Not even Jack Black as Claptrap seems to save it, I don't think.
Trailer for what? The TV show?
No, a movie, full-on movie. It's got Kate Blanchett and Jamie Lee Curtis, and as I say, Jack Black is Claptrap in it. And Kevin Hart. I might be overstepping a little bit here, but a bit of me looked at the cast for Borderlands and was just like, they might have they overaged how you imagined the protagonists from the first Borderlands game were, because everyone looks. That cast feels old for
Well, I think that's not necessarily a choice of the design of the characters as much as the acting of the actors. I don't think they were worried about how they look. I think they were worried about
Well, sure,
funny
who it is,
comedy.
and it's supposed to be a comedy, and are they just trying to say it's like, oh, we don't have young comedy actors at the moment?
Well, not ones that people who like Borderlands like, probably.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
That's a point,
Maybe
yeah.
the market research panned out. I don't know. It just didn't feel. That's not how and I guess maybe it's hard because of the Borderlands art style. It's not in my head where I would have put them. You know, where I would have placed those characters.
But do you really even remember the characters of Borderlands as being characters?
Well,
The
no,
player
because
characters?
I guess not, because they were only really personified properly in Borderlands 2, right?
Yeah.
Because they
And
made you
even
play
then,
as other people.
kind of not much. One of them specifically, always intentionally as part of the comedy, gets incredibly no characterization and then dies.
Right. I mean, it's all about Lilith, right? That's
It's the only one that actually matters, yes.
yeah, the most characterized character. Yeah. So there's that. Oh, and there's tiny Tina in it. I guess that's the youngest member of the cast. In other Gearbox news, they're bringing back Gigantic for some reason.
I think this is like... This might not actually turn out to be the case, but I feel like they've hilariously re-released it at the exactly wrong moment, like they released it the first time at the wrong moment. Like they released it the first time just after the peak of MOBAs, and then the market was saturated and nobody cared.
And Overwatch was like there.
Yeah, and other similar-ish
Because it's a MOBA shooter, but it's also a hero shooter,
Yes.
right? And didn't they also have Battleborn?
Battleborn as well, yeah.
So they sort of competed with themselves.
It wasn't just MOBAs at that point, it was the MOBA shooter period. And there was too many and the market was saturated and no one cared. But now they're bringing it back, like, just slightly after everyone might have just decided that they don't want live service shooters any longer.
Right. So the counter argument to that is like they're looking at Overwatch specifically and going, well, that's in decline. Maybe this is the time we can take some of that.
Maybe.
The favor towards Overwatch has run dry, so maybe we can come in and go, well, we can resurrect this old thing and perhaps claim some stragglers, I guess. I mean, to its credit, it sounds like it's ditching all of its microtransactions and like, well, not entirely, but like that whole it being a predatory feeling system. Apparently, all that's been like mostly removed. Everything can be earned through gameplay. There's nothing that's behind a paywall.
That might only be for this release, though.
I mean, maybe,
potentially.
yeah. But in a way, it makes total sense, right? If they want to try and make I mean, there's presumably systems to get some premium stuff through, or get some of the stuff quicker if you pay money. That has to be it, right? Because it's coming out as a free to play. So there's got to be something. But also, why not? I guess that thing failed hard. If they just want to run it as a free to play game, maybe only buy a few servers, maybe not a lot of servers. Probably can't cost a lot to actually run and see if it pays itself.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe that's the thing with like these short-term live service games. You go and slightly rework them, release them again later, and people go, "Oh yeah."
But that is what I'm saying though. Like, it feels like they could have done that, and it would have worked better like 2 years ago.
Maybe.
I think they precisely hit the wrong window.
But 2 years ago, Overwatch was still big, right? It's Overwatch 2
I don't know if it
that
was
has killed it.
really. I mean, Overwatch 2 obviously really fucked it up, but like I feel like regular Overwatch wasn't. Well, I mean, at that point, everyone was sort of looking for Overwatch 2 coming.
2 sounds weird now. They're making it so every character can sort of heal themselves.
Well, yes, I mean the classic.
Every character.
The classic healing problem.
Yeah.
No one wants to play healers.
I really didn't mind playing the healer role. That was kind of fun.
Sometimes depends on exactly how the healers work.
Sure. I thought people liked that weird lady who has both heal and hurt beams and orbs. I can't remember her name now. Claimed it was all in the aid of science.
Well, but the trouble with that is that once you're moving away from pure healing into like doing damage and healing, then that's why you make everyone be able to heal, because then it's just everyone is that.
I guess. Yeah.
It's why even in like Guild Wars, like every class just has its own healing powers.
Sure. Trying to get rid of the monk style, I suppose. Or
People moved on from having that much of a harshly dedicated role.
But then, like, Overwatch is supposed to be a team shooter.
It's supposed to be, yeah.
And it's like, are you like backing away from your team mechanics?
I think they already kind of did. I mean, it's not super much different from TF2, really. Like, as much as that was meant to be a team game, really, it was only the medic that was the one that mattered.
Sure. I mean, yeah, the roles weren't as well. You could argue the roles weren't as well defined in TF2. It's just everyone, they didn't really have roles per se apart from the medic, right? It was everyone. Well, maybe the sniper and the spy.
Yes.
But everyone else was kind of just...
I mean, yes, I think the TF2 roles maybe were more specific, but none of them were, like, critical. Like, I mean...
But most of the... I suppose, maybe having roles isn't the right word, but maybe they didn't have to synergize.
No.
Right? They didn't have to necessarily play a specific way with other classes in order to...
With other classes, yeah.
I mean, the engineer was probably the second most, like... critical to teamwork one, like the medic. Obviously, the medic can't function without teamwork.
There's the pyro and the spy checking. That was quite important.
Sure, but not super important. Like, you can handle... I mean, other players can spy check just as well. It's just, like, slightly easier with the burning.
Well, yeah, it becomes obvious once they're on fire.
Yeah. But yeah, medic was, like, critical, and then engineer was, like, incredibly helpful for team play. Just for teleporters and dispensers. Not even the turret. That part didn't count as much. But then beyond that, it was just like everyone can pretty much do their own thing, more or less.
Yeah, it's true that the teleporters and dispensers ended up being more important than the turret.
Depends if they managed to find a really sneaky turret place.
Well, it depends on the game type.
Yeah.
If you're playing 2-4, you have a million turrets.
Yeah. All in that one room.
Yep. So anyway, old games.
I do kind of miss TF2 a little bit.
Yeah, it's not like there's something to replace it because you just got Overwatch, right? I guess. Well, I guess it's a million games, but still.
Yeah.
It's not like there's a clearly better designed game to play now.
No, I mean, I would have argued Overwatch 1 was that, but I'm not so convinced now. I guess I've never tried it since it went Overwatch 2 myself, but and I'm sure it's still fun. But like, I'm probably gonna if I ever went into it, I'm kind of scared. I'm just gonna go into it and go, yeah, but now it's not like the original, and now I can't play that, and that would make me sad.
It's like every time you think about Monday Night Combat.
Oh God, there we go.
Just be sad.
Yeah, just be unhappy
because there just is nothing to do.
Well, I mean, technically Monday Night Combat you could still play. There's just no one playing it.
Sure. Yeah, it's like if you can get a group of 6 people together, you probably could play that by yourselves.
Yeah. I'm kind of sad there's no Left 4 Dead, really.
That's slightly easier to still get back into.
Yeah, I think that still flies, right? That's still okay. But,
it is weird to go back to. You forget how weird the function of that game was.
I guess how old, because it's old school PC, I suppose, at this point.
Yeah.
Right? It's not sort of before everything started modernizing on PC to sort of match what console was up to.
And it's just like, it is just old school in certain ways. It's just like, ways,
What, no aim, don't sight?
Well, yeah, that obviously. but like, even just the movement of it feels in that sort of ancient Doom-esque style of like, you just chug along in a very straight way. You push the button and you go forward. Unless you're getting hit by a zombie.
Valve FPS, you just chug along.
Yep. We're going to get to that in Half-Life soon. Half-Life 2.
Half-Life 2 videos.
Basically
Half-Life
the
2
same.
is a little less insane speed quake skates as Half-Life 1.
Well,
it's a bit more normal.
Sure. Yeah, kind of.
Half-Life 1's hilarious because it is just basically quake movement in a more somewhat more realistic world. It's a bit weird.
Unless you're a speedrunner, in which case Half-Life 2 is nuts.
Right.
Because it has a physics engine. And therefore chuck yourself at 200 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Yep.
In other loosely connected gaming news, then,
Yeah.
Hideo Kojima has a documentary up on Disney Plus, I think it is.
Really?
It's an hour-long documentary called Connecting Worlds about Death Stranding, like the making of the first game.
Okay.
I mean, I've got to watch. I've got to watch this, right? Like,
Yeah, you've got to watch it. I mean, you're the audience for it. I'm just thinking, like, that's a pretty niche game, even for gamers in a way. Like,
yeah.
Like, who's going to be watching that on Disney Plus? But yeah, sure.
Just to
awesome.
get in Hideo's head, right? I mean, even Metal Gearists that aren't into Death Stranding might want to just get some Hideo time.
The thing about that is, like, he is very much like one of those quote unquote artists where it's like, well, that art pretty much speaks for itself, doesn't it? Like,
Sure.
if you want to know about it, Kojima, just fucking play the weirdness of Death Stranding, right?
Yeah.
or Metal Gear or any of that.
Oh yeah, watch some Metal Gear cutscenes.
What's the point of asking? I mean, he's cool and everything and interesting, but like, why? There's no point asking like David Lynch what's the meaning of this or whatever. It's just watch
He
it.
probably doesn't know.
No.
I mean, would you be like? I mean, I guess the ultimate disappointment would be like you're asking Kojima something deep like that, and it's just like because it's cool, and it's like, is that like? And if he just,
But I think that probably is the case.
yeah, I 100% reckon that is all he's working with. But like, also, like, is that a disappointment if you knew that was actually what it was?
I don't know. I guess it depends on who you are.
Yeah, risky.
Well, give it a shot. Give us a review, a Rob review next time.
Yeah, maybe I will. Maybe I will. Maybe I can be bothered. We'll see. That's all I've really got for news. It's, unless Zach's got some stealth news this week.
I don't think so.
Oh,
And apart from the only other thing that I put on my list was just saying that Helldivers 2 is apparently too successful in the same way as Power World, where their servers are just fucked.
yeah, it's just they didn't have enough. Don't have enough capacity.
But it still didn't score that good.
Didn't it?
I mean, like in the
It did
80s,
all right,
it's
didn't it?
fine.
Oh yeah.
But like,
EU2 is pretty good. I thought that might make you actually want to play that, Zach.
well, I have been thinking about it.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, someone at least like there's a bunch of people on my Steam list playing it, and the person that I was previously playing Power World with has started playing it. But it looks like I haven't really looked at the game enough to know this, but it seems like you can play it solo. But then when I was thinking about it, I was like, do I need another Deep Rock Galactic, basically?
Oh, right. Yeah.
It's like, it is just another game. And then I would be playing it solo again, because chances of me actually getting enough people together to be able to play it,
Is this
I might have one person for a period of time.
Is this the genre that, like, does it count as an extraction shooter, right? Is that what this falls under?
I don't know what the actual like end goals of it are.
Right.
There's going to places and shooting things, but I don't
you
know
definitely
what
have to
like.
Oh, you have to get back into a dropship, right? You have to get back to a...
But do you have to? Like, can you still succeed on some level even while
Maybe.
sacrificing yourself?
I mean, maybe. I mean, that's sort of that's Derg does that, right? You don't have to bring everyone back.
Well, you don't have to bring everyone back, yes, but someone still has to survive to actually
Sure.
complete the mission.
I assume someone has to live.
I don't know. From what I've seen about Helldivers 2, I would say that maybe in that world it's distinctly possible that they wouldn't.
All right, they wouldn't care.
Require you to live.
All right. It is basically Starship Troopers, isn't it?
Kind of, yeah.
And they're leaning into that a bit.
So yeah, maybe I'll end up playing that. I need to ask the one person who's clearly playing it by themselves at the moment what their opinion is about whether I should get in. But I don't know. I'd rather play more Dirk still.
Wow.
Really?
Well,
I mean,
kind of.
I mean, I'm a bit ravenous for that content drop now.
Well, sure. I did finally
what the next season
talking
is.
about what we've been playing. I guess I did finally finish season 4 of Dirk.
Jeez.
Not that I've been playing it super much recently, but I did finally reach level 100, which they patched to allow you to turn off season 4. Since season 5 was so far away, you can hit once you've got all the way to level 100, then you can turn it off. How gracious of them for all that grinding.
People seem to like that Survivor, like the early access for Deep Rock Galactic Survivors.
Yeah, I mean, I watched a couple of videos of it. It's like, well, yeah, it's just that.
I mean, yeah, it seems to be what you'd expect, but just a quite well made one of those.
Well, but the trouble is, I feel like there haven't been enough of those to determine what is a properly well made one of them yet.
And maybe just the minor additions of that you can mine, that you're a miner.
Sure.
Right, that is slightly different. And
but I also feel like it's risky putting that in early access. That seems like one of those things like roguelikes in general. Where it's like you put that in early access too early and everyone's just going to leave before it's done.
Yeah. You want to play one of those when it's got the most stuff in it.
Yeah. And minor dribbles of stuff isn't going to draw people back much.
Maybe, but then Vampire Survivors kind of did that when it came out. It wasn't technically early access, but like it came out and then there was a whole bunch of free content that dripped into it, and then there was some DLC.
Yeah, but it was already considered a finished product at the start, right?
Yeah, I guess,
they weren't. It wasn't early access because of that. It was like they had a fully
there was a template that they then didn't change and made.
It was like Binding of Isaac or whatever, where it's like
right,
you have a full set of items at the start, but then there's this DLC and all this other shit.
Then they just add to it.
Yeah. So I don't know about that. But yes, regular Dirk. Now that I finished season 4.
Come on, season 5.
June still is all we know about it.
Ugh.
So it's still quite a way to go.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be a whole other game as well, obviously, because that's the whole reason season 5 is taking this long.
Yeah. That can't be any time soon.
I think they said that they're going to launch at least the early access version of it at the same time as season 5.
Oh.
Kind of, that's the point.
Huh. All right. Way sooner than I thought.
Well, I mean, from what they've shown of it, it is obviously just using the Dirk engine, the same cave style,
right.
All that stuff. So we'll see what actually happens with that. Still don't really know much about that game, apart from being a roguelike, I guess. Again.
News! Oh, I mean, I guess we watched the Super Bowl as well.
Yeah, we did.
News.
Nothing video game relevant there, was there?
I don't know. We don't get the American ads.
Yeah.
There might have been.
No.
I don't know whether to talk about it in the sense, like, in case people haven't seen it yet. Like, it's been a couple of weeks, I guess, but it was, I want to say, a particularly good game, I thought, actually.
Well, yeah,
I enjoyed this one, yeah.
Does it ever make you want to watch more American football than just the Super Bowl?
No.
No,
I don't think it ever has.
But
I guess I'm interested more in what NFL is to an extent, but like, and in fairness, like I have occasionally seen a game, and it's like I like the idea that watching an NFL match without all the
crap,
without all the excess pauses,
all the stuff cut out,
it's the Super Bowl, is actually better. But I did that like once, and then was like, no, I don't really want to follow this. I don't think. It's like just any sport that has, other than F1, that has just too much going on. Like club football, for instance. Like I don't really get into that because I guess there's just so many games, right, and so much other stuff happening that it's just like, no, I can't stay into it.
Yeah, but that's why when those years when I've got into regular football, as I sometimes do, it's like I'm not interested in like the league or anything. I'm just interested in seeing the cool goals and shit.
Yeah, okay, that's a bit
goals,
different. Yeah. I can get behind that. That's like just see the cool stuff
or the controversies or whatever.
Yeah,
that's why the highlight shows are fine. It's just like you can watch that. You don't need to watch an actual match that often.
Yeah,
once in a while maybe.
I guess. But then I don't feel like I'm necessarily getting the authentic experience. Like I quite like watching Six Nations, for instance, like because it's that little burst of rugby and international rugby, which I find more interesting than club rugby anyway.
Well, obviously, yeah.
And and it's like that short period of the year where you can actually just get into it for it, and then you're good for the rest of the year. Like have a breather, come back to it.
But that's just like that's how that is what we're talking about in sports. So it's like that's why I only happen to get into football like every now and then, like one season every now and then. I don't want it continuously. It's like the Olympics, just once every 4 years. You can watch some of those weird sports that you never watch continuously because
it's once every 2 years because of the winters, and that's
but the winters have different sports.
Yeah,
so that's okay.
That's a good cadence. Yeah, I like that.
Get ready for Olympic breakdancing or whatever the fuck it is coming up.
Yep.
Olympic Just Dance.
And then Ubisoft will win.
Yes.
The country of Ubisoft.
I mean, that is technically France.
Is it though?
I mean, a little bit.
I think at this point it might be Canada probably. In terms of actual numbers of people.
Well, yeah. I mean, that would make sense. Also French.
Well, yes.
Also, F1 is like, I don't know. Yes, there's like 24 races this year, so it's like, it's getting bigger. There's more and more of it than ever before, but it's like, but the race is like, there is the one race, right? There's not like there's like branches of races that like in team. So there's not a league over here and a league over there, or like in American sports, right? The NHL in particular, like they have all the conferences in NHL, right?
Yeah, but that's only due to the scale of the country. That's not like that's the only reason that's like that. It's like if you took the teams that exist in English football and spread them out over America, they'd have to do the same thing.
Maybe, but then. But do you know what I mean? There's just like this one centralized thing, so it's just easier to follow the whole picture.
Oh,
there's the one race where everybody is every week, and that's fine.
That's why you pay attention to it that much, because like it's not like you're continuously watching Formula E and Formula 2 and all the other ones that do happen.
No, and I guess you can do that. It's like I've dipped into the odd Formula E race just to see the weirdness of it.
Yeah. Or all the other car racing that goes on continuously all the time.
I mean, there's loads of it, yeah, but not a lot of it is actually broadcast.
Well, not the channels we get anyway.
Yeah. Bring back truck racing.
It's never gone away.
No, I bet
it's just impossible to get videos of it.
It used to be on Eurosport, like back in the day when Sky was analog, right? Like,
yeah.
That was bad. I think I had a VHS of truck racing at like Branston Hatch or something, but I was growing up for some reason. It's crazy. Branston Pickle.
Branston Pickle Hatch.
Deploy the pickle hatch.
I mean, it'll be a pretty good sponsorship, right? If they just change the whole course to Branston Pickle Hatch.
Branston Hatch, yeah. Doesn't really care. No one's really watching anything at Brands Hatch anymore, I don't think, are they?
I think some superbike still happens there.
Yeah.
Right. Well, probably they do truck racing, but it's weird having the European cab over trucks racing because they always look like they're going to fall over.
Yeah.
But that's the point.
Yeah. How does that even work? What do they do to stop them? I suppose they're really bottom heavy with
they actually aren't that unstable.
No.
They just look like they should be.
They just look it, yeah.
That's the news.
I guess.
At some point, we'll do Excite Truck for
sure. Now that I've actually got it
YouTube
functioning with Wiimotes on emulator, we can do that.
That might be a breather before we do.
Yeah, before we get into some other series.
Yeah.
I might actually have to play more of that in order to unlock some stuff, though. That's sort of the problem with Excite Truck. It's got it has actually got a progression.
So, what have you been playing then, Rob?
Can you guess?
The same thing that you've been playing previous podcast.
Yeah.
Like a Dragon.
I'm like 55 hours into Yakuza 0. Like a Dragon 0. Ryu Gagatoko Zero. I don't know how they say what the actual Japanese name is. Yeah, I mean I've been doing a lot of grinding, if I'm honest. Like, so I've been I've been grinding out the mini games and not really progressing the story a whole bunch. So I've been making Kiryu become a real estate god. He makes a lot of money very quickly now, which is quite useful because his abilities are hella expensive in the skill tree at this point. So I need all the monies. But that's taken quite a while to grind out. And that's so you basically it's kind of like it's a little bit like an idle game, the real estate thing for Kiryu, because you kind of set it off and then you go and you can go do other things and then you come and collect all the money later and then set it off again. So I've been doing a bit of that. You go some of the side stuff I've been looking into is the slot car racing is obviously back in this. So I've been doing a bit of that as well. But that's identical to how it was in Kiwami. What else have I been doing? Doing some of the cabaret club game again, because Majima has to manage that, and he doesn't make nearly as much money as Kiryu does, because that's his business, right? So Kiryu has the real estate, and Majima has the cabaret club stuff. And he doesn't make nearly as much money as fast, except for when you beat one of the local 5 bad guys, right? There's always, in all of these games, there's always like the 5 bad guys of this particular thing, and when you beat one of those, you do get a hefty money bonus for doing it. But that doesn't mean he does. Yeah, his economy is slightly different from Kiryu's. That means like you get these sudden influxes of a whole bunch of cash, rather than like having a nice steady stream that you can manage. So the dynamic's a little bit different. I've been doing some fishing, catching me some fish. It's like it's the easiest fishing mini game that I think these games have ever had. So that's not too arduous to do. Just spend all of your billions of yen on a good rod, and then you're sorted.
On a rod.
Yep. And then you're sorted. Although I still haven't caught an eel. I've got a sub-story where I need to catch an eel or find an eel or acquire an eel somehow, and I don't know how to get this eel. I don't know where the bloody hell's do you get eels. I
did like seeing the bit in the donkey video for the new one where it's like it's got the fishing mini game, but then it's also got Sega Bash fishing in the arcade.
Right?
Clearly superior.
I didn't realize it, but this game actually has like 4. Like old school Sega games in it as its thing. I thought it only had like Space Harrier and Outrun, but I noticed in the completion list that it actually mentions Fantasy Zone and Super Hang-On as well. And I'm like, I need to find where those are. I guess they're in like Majima's area, because maybe I think I've only done the UFO catching in Majima's area. Maybe I didn't actually pay attention to what arcade games were actually in the Sotenbori arcade. So I'm gonna go play some Super Hang-On, I think, in a bit. I mean, yeah, these games are consistently pretty funny. I was made to do the creepy telephone game that I told you about last time. Whilst Gnome was in the room, because it came up as part of a story quest for the real estate game, and I'm like, oh no, I'm being forced down this path. Conveniently, her and Bubba fell asleep just before it kicked off, so I got away with it.
Nice.
It is pretty creepy. There's no denying it. And there isn't a cheat, right? So one of the collectibles in this game this time, there's always been a thing in all of the like Yakuza games where you see these like little shiny dots on the floor, and you can there's something to interact with. And this time you're collecting old. Do you remember telephone cards? Like you needed a weird magnetic card in order to make payphones work.
I do remember.
So this game like has those as a collectible, but of course they're not just telephone cards. They're telephone cards with ladies on them. And so you're collecting those. And when you find there's like 3 of the same lady in a set that you can find in this thing. When you find those, you can go watch a video of that lady at the video store. And you've got to do that at least once if you want a sweet 15 gamer score. So I went and did one of those. It's a little bit creepy, in that sort of like, what do they call them? Gravure idol? Is that the term they use for Japanese? Like, not quite porn, shall we call it?
Right. Yeah.
What's the UK equivalent? Sort of like glamour model? Is it? Is that still a term that's used?
Yeah. That isn't that what they use for like the page 3 girls?
Kinda.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no actual nudity in this game, but like it's not like it's one of those. But like, still, you're still watching video of someone in their bikini, like maybe shooting a bubble gun. It's a bit weird, I guess you can only look forward to the modern Yakuza games where the cabaret club is entirely FMV, right? So they're still doing that, I guess.
Dear.
They're still doing that. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's fun. It's still drawing me in. I'm not bored of it. It's like it's a testament to what these games are, and that okay, I've kind of played this game before. I think more so than maybe some of the other Yakuza games. I feel like I've played this one before because it's so much like in between Kiwami 1 and Kiwami 2, and it's borrowing a lot from both of those games, or the Kiwami's borrowed from this. Again, I can't remember which way round it was, but there's even with the different setting, I feel like this is very familiar, and yet I'm still quite happy with that. You know?
Yeah, of course.
I don't mind that at all. There's the odd story direction where you're just like, oh, well, the threads are starting to come together. I think I had mentioned last time I mentioned it. I had like a single hint about what the threads would be, but now they're very much
okay. The gathering.
There's Kiryu is going to Sotenbori, so in theory, him and Majima might be in the same place at the same time, which will be entertaining, I'm sure. Because I don't actually know if they properly meet or if they know each other. Because like from what there's at the very start of the first Yakuza game, there's kind of a interaction between Kiryu and Majima that eventually is what kicks off the whole Majima Anywhere system in Kiwami. But like I don't know if their paths have crossed before. They're sort of aware of each other at that point, but they're not really friends at the start of Yakuza Kiwami, if that makes sense. So I'm wondering how much crossover there really will be. Like maybe they won't. Maybe they'll just happen to be sort of in the same place and sort of their stories intertwine without the two characters meeting. It's kind of intriguing. It's that difficult path to walk when you're a prequel, I guess, without retconning everything that came after. I don't know. I love it. Yeah, it's a good game. It's a good game. I'm having fun. I have absolutely no idea how much more of it there is to do.
Right. I mean, have you experienced from prior games where it's like you think it's coming to end, and then there's a whole...
definitely. Yeah, it's definitely done that. Like just like, oh no, that storyline you were just doing, that's a fake out. There's another bad guy. Yep. That kind of thing. Does that all the time.
Okay, standard part of the course. Sometimes
multiple times throughout the runtime. So yeah, I've got absolutely no idea. And I'm already over the hour count for what I put into Yakuza 4 and 5 and stuff like that. And as I'm not sure how close I am to the end. Which I guess if you want a short game, this is not that. You kind of do have to engage with all its systems to get the most out of it. I think I mentioned before, like I think it's genius how a lot of the other minigame mechanics kind of feed back into each other. If you do a lot of the sub-stories for Kiryu, for instance, you will get managers and advisors that will help you out in the real estate game.
All right.
If you do,
that's handy.
Yeah, if you do sub-stories for Majima, you might get some more hostesses for your club. Things feed back into itself, and you do get meaningful upgrades for some systems by just doing stuff. There's this completion point system. So as you just do more of the game, you earn more completion points, and you can trade those in for other benefits, like being able to sprint forever, or acquiring more hostesses in Majima's case, or unlocking a change of decor for your club. There are things tied that there are rewards for just doing things in the game and doing more of the stuff in the game, and it's it works and encourages you to keep going and keep trying things. Although it is getting a bit, there are some parts of it that are now getting a bit stale for me. I don't really want to have to play pool anymore. because I don't think its implementation of pool is very good. You know, it's not like virtual pool like it was back in the day, and it's not whatever modern day pool simulation is. It's definitely not that. It's pretty crude. So I'd kind of rather not do those, but occasionally.
How much is there of that then?
I mean, there's not a lot in this case. There's not a lot mandatory. I've only had to do it once so far, but pretty much every Yakuza game has one mandatory pool game you have to do, I think. I haven't come across the bit where I have to play darts yet, and bowling hasn't been mandatory, although there is a sub-story tied to it, so go bowl. And it's the same bowling game that's been in the last 4 of them or something. So it's like, okay, fine, it's here. I'll just have to play this a bunch. You know, so there are some things that are reused perhaps a little too much. I think the baseball game is probably the weakest it's been in this one. It's just not that interesting. There's some completion targets around doing the baseball game, but I haven't stumbled upon a sub-story related to it yet, so that's fine. Yeah, so maybe some elements are starting to run a bit stale with me, but it's but those are just parts of the whole. It's a good game. There's one other thing I've sort of dabbled with a little bit, and that is Ridge Racer 3D on the 3DS.
Not a music player though.
Not a music player,
but like that demo back in the day, they did that thing where it was just a spinning car with music playing, whatever, on the 3D, right at the start of the 3DS.
Oh, I don't even remember that. Yeah, I don't remember that whatever that was. That's sort of weird. I guess Ridge Racer had to launch on the console, but they didn't have a Ridge Racer game ready for it yet.
Well, I mean, there's always been weird, like, little demos like that, especially on the 3DS. I mean, and the DS. You remember Metroid Hunters?
Oh god, yeah.
The classic, what the hell is this thing?
Well, they did they turn that into a game?
Yeah,
at all?
they did it. Yeah. It was an actual game, not just a weird tech demo.
Yeah, because it was there was a packing cartridge was just a demo, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, Ridge Racer 3D. It's kind of cut from the modern Ridge Racer cloth, so it's got the nitrous system. That turned up from the PSP version onwards. So it's got a bit of that. It's like a lot of these portable Ridge Racer games. It's like a retread of like old courses, which is no bad thing because Ridge Racer generally has pretty cool tracks. So there's the Ridge Racer track is there. There's some stuff. There's one of the tracks from Revolution. I think there's some Rage Racer stuff. Which is, I mean, that's particularly cool to me. Like Rage Racer really isn't retread all that much by the Ridge Racer series. So the fact that they've got a couple of tracks from that there is neat. I like that. Give Rage Racer some love. It's a decent entry in the series. Overlooked. But ultimately, I don't know that this one's really pushing my buttons, right? It's everything feels very surface level right, but I'm not sure it feels quite right. Like, so it's the magic. The drifting is very smooth in this. Like, it's not the weird sudden I'm suddenly drifting kind of like
snap
click,
into the drifting.
Yeah, it does. It's still doing that same trick where you don't really have to be facing the right way while drifting. It's still Ridge Racer at its heart, but the way it transitions in and out of that is now very smooth and very predictable. And as a result, I don't know if there's a skill ceiling to this in the sense that it feels incredibly easy right now. Just very, very, very easy. And I'm only like, there's quite a lot of races to do. There's quite a lot of tournaments to do before you actually start unlocking. I haven't actually unlocked faster speed class yet. I'm still in what it calls category 4, which is the slowest class. So I'm kind of dying for it to get a bit quicker, actually, because it's fine. It plays okay, but it's just not. There is no challenge. It's a bit boring. And Ridge Racer, that's the one thing Ridge Racer shouldn't be.
Should
is
not
boring.
be. Yeah.
And I guess Ridge Racer 6 did suffer from this a little bit as well, because Ridge Racer 6 had a massive map of things to do.
Right?
Yeah, and you progressed pretty slowly through it.
The giant hexagon field.
Yeah.
And I like, or is that Wipeout?
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, Wipeout Omega Collection does that as well, right? With the 2049 series, the Vita stuff. But no, the Hex map was definitely a Ridge Racer 6 thing. And I quite like Ridge Racer 6, and I did that whole bloody thing. But yeah, that is a slow progression. And I think this has a similar problem. Yeah, I just want it to be more difficult. And the other sort of let down a little bit is that we're talking about the sort of meta side of it, is that the new tracks they've added, the ones that I think are original, or at least I don't recognize them from another Ridge Racer, they suck. I mean, not from they're awkward, like the tracks that were added to Ridge Racer 64, for instance. Those were kind of awkward and not great. I agree, Miles. They were laughable. They were all right. To put that in perspective, that those are the sort of like canyon tracks, right? The ones that had that zigzag section that was impossible to drive through properly. You had to drift it in a stupid manner.
Yeah.
And that was the only way to get around that bit of track. These are just boring. Like, they're incredibly wide tracks with like next to no actual turns in it. You can pretty much do a lap without drifting. So in order to make it interesting, and I think in order to like get better times, you're trying to make yourself drift to build up some nitrous so you can use that. And and I think maybe that's actually the trick, right? You've just got to be drifting you've got to be Mario Karting all over the place. You've got to be snake drifting in order to build up nitrous and go even faster. Maybe that'll get more interesting in the higher categories as maybe a weird technique you have to employ to actually do well on those races. But as it stands, they suck. And they're long as well. They're the longest tracks in the game. So it's like
long and boring.
Yeah. And I think also I can't remember if this is true of all of the modern Ridge Racers, where the snappiness of just your normal driving is reduced. So at the moment, I can't drive the classic Ridge Racer track as I've always driven the classic Ridge Racer track. Like, there are turns you can't get round by just steering.
Okay.
You have
because
to drift
of the
them.
way it handles.
Right? Yeah. So you're drifting most corners in this. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Change the handling model, give a bit of fresh life to the game, sure. But I like that balance. I like the fact that like there are turns that are faster to take by not drifting. If you can be precise with your lines, then you can keep your speed up because drifting reduces your speed. But then that's also counterbalanced in this by the fact that collisions are way less bad. Like, you can scrape the wall a few times and not really be penalized as much. Whereas in like classic Ridge Racer, hitting the wall is like, oh, that's dramatic. That's bad.
Yeah.
I need to not do that. Here it's not so bad. And the same is true of like car collisions as well. They're not nearly as impactful as they were as they normally are. And maybe that's just I don't know, maybe they're sort of making some reductions in difficulty because it's a handheld game, right? It's a bit more casual. I don't know. Anyway, like, so some of the Ridge Raciness isn't really here.
Present, yeah.
And so I'm liking it a little less. That's not to say it isn't well presented. It is presented well. It's got a pretty good and very varied soundtrack. And they also throw in some old soundtrack stuff as well. So there's some music from Rage Racer, thumbs up. There's some music from the original Ridge Racer. There's some music from Ridge Racer Type 4, also thumbs up. So the soundtrack is pretty broad. And that's great. Do that. Also, the 3D effect is a little too strong.
Oh, classic
like
3DS.
if you turn your 3D all the way up, it feels too 3D.
Never turn your 3D all the way up.
Some games do it well. Some games that's where that should be, but like definitely not here. It's excessive, and not a great way to play it. And I don't think it blends particularly. I don't think having it in 3D mode blends particularly well with its boost effect, because it does the classic old school motion blur.
Right.
You know, like where it literally just holds the last frame for a bit, right, rather than it being true motion blur. So that looks a bit weird in 3D. And also, just to add a slight bit of insult to injury on the presentation front, it's not a perfect frame rate. There are times where it dips, and that is sacrilege for a Ridge Racer game.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah. I mean, it holds 30 for the vast majority of the time. It's a handheld game. I'm not expecting it to run at 60. It's on the 3DS. I'm definitely not expecting it to run at 60. Yeah, there are. It's on those. It's on the new tracks as well. The old tracks, which have obviously been vamped up and redone to look good. It's like they seem to run fine. It's the new tracks, the ones that were made for the game, that seem to have the odd performance dip, which is also quite weird. Anyway, it's still pretty. I know it's been a Rob review. It's still pretty good, but it's not it's not working
one
for
of
me.
the series that you would choose.
Yeah, it's not working for me like a Ridge Racer normally does. Which is weird because, like, if you like, I don't know, I've seen over the years like quite a few ranking of Ridge Racers, and like this one doesn't do badly on most people's list, and it's like I'm a little surprised that I'm not enjoying it as much as I normally would.
Or maybe it's just giving bonus points for being a portable game.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe I'm just too much of a purist and I prefer the originals over modern. You know, because I've pretty recently played all of the old ones.
Well,
right?
I mean, I'm sure
So,
that doesn't help.
No. Particularly fond of Rage Racer, which is like the most old school. Well, okay. The drifting in Rage Racer sucks. I'm not gonna lie. That's its weakest element, which is a bit weird for a Rage Racer game. But I really like Rage Racer's like driving, just generally. It's way more of a challenge than the others. Yeah. That's Ridge Racer 3D, and that's pretty much all I've been doing.
Ridge Racer 3D, the Rob review. How long do you have to wait for that? A few years.
Yeah, God, I don't even. It's over a decade old, I think, that game.
Yeah, good one though. Cool. What about you, Zachary Burgess? Other than what you've already said,
Yes.
But let's elaborate.
Well, I mean, I do need to maybe go back and talk about all those demos that we skipped over last time.
Oh, sure, yeah, because we ran out of
done
bit of time.
Except now that I've come to look at the actual notes I took about them, maybe I don't want to actually talk about much of them.
Okay.
Or even the notes not interesting.
Well, I was trying. It's like I don't think necessarily some of these have much to say. Like Final Factory is like Factorio in space, basically, and that might be kind of it.
And not a Japanese RPG mechanic in sight?
No,
that's disappointing.
the one thing that it does slightly different is, which is, it could be cool, but it's one of those things where it's like it doesn't feel like it's the point of the game. It feels like it's just some extra systems that got shoved in. Whereas, like, because you're in space, you're building little like space stations, and the space stations have like different modules can generate heat, so you need like radiator panels, and they have like a limit to structural stability, so they can only be so big. So you have to build like little compact stations to do one thing, and then ship the items to another little station that does the next step in the process or whatever. Which is like, that's the factory design gameplay challenge of that game.
Sure.
But like, once you sort of, the trouble is that I think the problem might be that it doesn't restrict you enough within that system. Like, you can just build a building and just put a solar panel on it, and then that's it. And then you can just have an infinite number of those. Like, you don't actually necessarily have to worry about the stability of a station, because you can have each individual building be an independent station, basically, and therefore they never hit the stability limit because they're all independent.
Right.
It's like, it kind of maybe doesn't mash that system together enough. There is sort of, it might be out of the scope of the demo, but like later on, you do get it in the demo, but you don't necessarily see the use for it much in the demo. But you get the ability to have the stations move, so you can actually have the whole thing just shift around. So instead of shipping along these little logistic routes using these little shuttle ships, maybe you could just move the whole factory at a certain point. But like, and then that gives you a reason to build a big factory and worry about the stability and all that stuff, because then you can just move the whole thing rather than have all these little tiny bits all over the place. But,
Right.
But I don't know. That is like that. Those systems seem like they would be cool, but maybe the game doesn't really lean into them that much. Or maybe it's just like you don't see it until later in the tech tree that's beyond where the demo is, maybe. Although speaking of the tech tree, it's another one of the... It's another classic case of like you look at the tech tree and it's just Factorio, and I'm like, people need to maybe start thinking of some new ideas, maybe.
Okay.
Because it's like you can see the exact same progression of like, and then at the end it's like you launch the rocket, except in this game you're launching the rocket into a black hole because that's how you move on to the next area.
Right.
And it's just like, that's the end of the tech tree is always launching a rocket.
Yeah.
In all of these games, even the ones that I do like.
In most strategy games ever, right? That's the most 4X games. It's launch the rocket.
Well, Civilization, I guess.
Yeah,
it's one of the choices.
Even Captain of Industry, it's launch a rocket.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that is that game. It's just like it's another factory game which seems like it has some cool ideas, but maybe the cool ideas aren't integral enough to the actual game.
Oh, I just suddenly thought of this. 2 Point Campus should really do a Hogwarts tie-in.
I mean, it was kind of already that because they had.
I mean, they have the parody, right? But they should just fully lean in and do like some DLC. That's.
Yeah, but you wouldn't because they already have the parody. You wouldn't be able to put real Hogwarts into the game.
It'll be kind of you'd have to treat it a bit like an old school Total Conversion, right? Like so, like they changed the.
Well, yeah, but then I don't think that's what you do with DLC, really. Especially not for a game like that.
Maybe, I don't know.
For a mod,
I think they would if they could.
I don't think they'd want non-parody DLC. Like,
maybe.
I think if you were going to, you'd have to parody something else and make another parody.
I did see they tweeted the other day, like there was someone for some reason put a picture of like an awkward cubby that was in like a hallway or something,
right?
And it was just and the tweet was basically like asking, "What am I going to do with this space?" And they retweeted it with a picture of a cheesy Gubbins vending machine in it.
Obviously. That's pretty much that's how that was even back in Female School. Every time you get one of those little weird, like, one square zigzags where it's like, the rooms have to be square, so there's going to be this little extra space. Just shove a vending machine
in it.
Or alternatively block it off with benches to make sure no one paths into it.
My trick in, like, 2 Point Hospital, if I ever ended up with, like, a pointless one thin corridor, like, and I couldn't be asked to extend the rooms, right, to fill it, is I would just put a phone box or a telephone right at the very end, and it's like, well, this is the privacy corridor. Like,
that's the most private phone call. And then someone else walks down there, in which case it becomes very unprivate. Yeah, and then you get mashed right next to each other. So that was Final Factory. What other demos did I play? I played Lightyear Frontier, which is basically a farming game in space, I guess. Like a Stardew-esque farming thing. Okay. I mean, obviously it's 3D, not Stardew-esque in that way, but you're building a farm.
Actual Stardew.
Yeah, I guess. And then the way people have talked about it, and maybe even the advertising of it, is trying to imply that, like, oh, it's like farming, but you have a mech, and it's like, that really doesn't change much.
Well, no, surely that's just a change of the art.
Well, it's just like it's a change of the scale of objects. Like It is kind of weird when you actually get out of the mech and you're like, wow, everything is actually huge, right. But you don't realise because you're in the mech most of the time.
Okay. Giant corn.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, it's like
man-sized corn on the cob.
It is like a fairly simple farming thing, and once again, the changes that they've tried to make to mix up the formula, apart from the mech, obviously, it's like are mechanics that I don't feel the impact of. Like, one of the things it does, it seems to be slightly leaning into like the ecological, like, repairing the planet kind of thing, where it's like maybe because of you, because of whatever the story might be, but like areas of the map are all fucked up, and like you go in there and like clean all the sludge up with your water gun or whatever. Your irrigation gun, I suppose.
Farm to de-harm?
Well, yeah, maybe. But like, so it has that, and that seems to maybe, it's hard to tell from the demo, but that might be to like basically how you unlock new areas of the map to use and therefore new resources. Like it seems like the resources don't spawn until you've cleaned up the area, basically. So there's that kind of progress. But then in areas you already have access to, the resource nodes regenerate on like a daily cycle or whatever. But if you go around and feed all the local wildlife in that area, then it gives you a bonus to the regeneration of the resources.
Okay.
Except, it obviously it's hard to tell from the early game, which the demo is, but like there didn't seem to be any reason that you would want to do that. Like the amount of resources you can get at the speed they naturally respawn was more than enough.
That's fine, right?
It's like it's a good idea, kind of, to have this like thing you do daily in a farming game. Obviously, that kind of makes sense. But the actual reward for doing it is something you don't need.
Irrigate to mitigate.
I think you're going to have problems if everything runs of 8. It's a bit too simple.
Maybe, yeah. And to cultivate to
annihilate. Probably. It's the end game.
If it's the other way, it would be cultivate to regenerate, surely.
Could be. You don't know what the story is. Speaking of a story, this is games that I will be playing in the future probably, but
Spoilers!
They finally announced that Satisfactory is actually for real going to come out.
What?
And therefore it's going to have its story implemented so we can actually find out what you're actually doing.
Yeah.
The whole reason for this whole thing. And what all the alien artifacts are for.
What are you doing?
Because they've been in the game ever since the alpha, but their tooltip has always said work in progress. And it's just like, what are these for? What are they going to be for? And there is this one like specific type of ore you can mine that doesn't do anything as well. What is the end game story? What is the dumb corporate like thing that's going to happen? I've always suspected that like you're because you're putting shit up that space elevator all the time to some unknown purpose. They're building something up there, and I've always suspected it's just going to be like a giant space billboard or something.
Right, that'd be pretty funny.
That does seem like how that game's humour might go. You're building all these goddamn giant nuclear power plants at the end of the game, and it's just going to be a giant space billboard.
A huge advert, and that's it.
So that's coming up maybe this year.
Livestock to uncock.
And then the third of these demos it's a new version of a game I played before at some point, probably maybe talked about on the podcast, but I don't remember, called Terratech. This one's called
I think you have mentioned it.
This one's called Terratech Worlds. But as far as I can see, it's basically the exact same game again.
No.
Which is like, why is this a new game exactly?
Is it bigger? Because it's more world.
Hard to tell because it's a demo, so you don't have access to much. It does seem to imply that there are like planets, and then the planets have like biomes on them. So there is like some kind of like, at some point you're going to jump between the planets, and that's going to restrict your access to different resources, presumably based on the biomes of that planet and that kind of thing. But apart from that, it's mostly the same game where you build these little vehicles that have to fight other vehicles, but like the other vehicles are just randomly spawned around the map, and you just like run into them and shoot them and then steal all their parts or whatever. It functions basically exactly the same as it used to, which is, again, like, it has some cool idea of like shoot the enemies and steal their parts and then use them to upgrade your vehicle and that kind of thing. But like, because it's all just randomly generated, and you're just, like, obviously the further away you go from your starting location, the harder the enemies are going to be or whatever. And it's just like, there's no tactics to it or anything. You just build whatever you can. You build the biggest thing you can afford to that will outclass the enemies and then destroy them and steal whatever bits are good and then keep doing that over and over. And the actual design, functionality of the vehicles doesn't seem very, like, clever.
Right.
There's no real.
There's a truck.
There's a couple of little things where it's like you get a special block that is the gun mount, and if you put the guns on it, it makes the guns better rather than attaching them to any other block. So you could like design your vehicle around that or whatever.
A truck to unfuck.
Not in this game. I'm pretty sure. I don't know what the ecological situation is on these planets or why you're doing any of this. There does seem to be weird, like, industrial ruins around the place that suggest, like, something went wrong. Like, they were trying to terraform it and it didn't. Or something along those lines. And then the other thing, which this weirdly about Terratech, which weirdly ties into Factorio somehow, due to a recent, this Friday's, like, Friday blog post from Factorio. So in Terratech, in this demo, the planet you're on, in the first biome you start in, what? Yeah, I think in the first biome you start in, or at least one that's very adjacent to the one you start in, has lightning storms that basically destroy shit, and the lightning kind of homes in on you, maybe because you're made of metal, but also because it's a game, where, like, if you're standing still, you are going to get hit by lightning very frequently, and it just destroys your shit, and it's really annoying. And therefore, you're in this situation where you're looking at the texture and being like, how soon can I get a lightning rod? And it's not goddamn soon enough, is the answer.
Right.
So it came to the point where it's like, as soon as the lightning storms started up, I just, like, park on the repair pad in my base and then just have the lightning hit me, and then it would just repair me immediately. Right. It's like, this is not a good gameplay mechanic. This is just annoying. And then even when you get the lightning rod, it still kind of sucks because, like, counterintuitively, or maybe counterintuitively, you have to push the button to deploy the lightning rod, but then it has, like, a cooldown where you can only hold the lightning rod in its deployed state for a few seconds before it has to stop and cool down. So even when you're in the lightning storm, you're having to be like, okay, here comes the lightning, turn on the lightning rod, and then you wait for the lightning strike, and then it's like, okay, undeploy the lightning rod and wait for it to cool down quickly before the next lightning strike comes. It's like, this is not a good system either.
Doesn't actually mitigate the problem.
No, it just makes it annoying in a different way, an active way.
You level that thing up so it's less annoying?
Well, don't know from the demo. You can get, like, the version that you put on your base to protect your base, and that seems to just be a permanent defense for the area around your base, I guess. But that doesn't really help when you're wanting to drive your vehicle around all the time.
Protect your bod with a lightning rod.
Yep. But in relation to Factorio, weirdly, this most recent Friday blog post about the expansion that's coming, they talked about one of the new planets, which is going to basically have that same thing. It's like, it's a planet that's got lightning storms all the time, and they'll destroy your shit if it's not protected by lightning rods.
Right.
Although in the Factorio case, it's trying to make it slightly more... It's trying to... when you first land on the planet, there's, like, alien ruins that naturally attract the lightning or have their own lightning rods. So that, like, creates a zone in which it's safe to build initially. So it's like it's restricting your access to land, basically, in a kind of interesting way. And then, you know, you develop the lightning rod tech, and then because it's Factorio, you just integrate that into your blueprints, probably. You just stamp them down and there's always a lightning rod, and that's that. And then obviously in Factorio's version, it feeds the energy into the power grid, so your actual...
Oh, you're actually benefiting.
Yeah, you're actually... It seems like on that planet, one of the main power sources might be the lightning, because it's kind of designed so... It's like you have these islands that are in a sort of an oil ocean. It's like sandy oil. But, like, you can't build on the oily area, so your power grids are going to be these separate little islands, but then you can build rail over the oil. So it's going to be about having, like, small power grids that are basically powered by the lightning and then connecting those bits by train. Or at least that's the intention. So, yes, in Factorio, I thought it was funny because the first video they showed where it's like, for demonstration purposes, the lightning strike rate and damage has been increased in this video. And I was like, yeah, that just reminds me of Terratech. And that looks exactly how that went. Really annoying. Destroys all your shit real quick. But in Factorio, at least it's like they have a gameplay mechanic to deal with it in a sane way, in a less annoying way. Lightning rods that actually work all the time. Well, maybe all the time. I guess I don't know. Because I don't know what the mechanic... I suppose you could, like, overload them or something.
Or do you have to provide... Yeah, do you have to provide some sort of material to them to keep them in tip-top condition?
Maybe. I wouldn't have thought so. I think in, like, the way Factorio works, they don't really use just maintenance in that way. Like, constantly putting things into a building just to keep it working. Unless it's like a fuel, obviously, but that's a different thing. So yeah, we'll see about Factorio's expansion. That's still coming this year, theoretically. Coming. People are still like weirdly unsure about whether they'll like it or not. A lot of the times you'll see people complaining about.
Is that weird, or is that just like not knowing what it is?
Well, I mean, it's because they're talking about these details of it, and it feels like every time they make one of these blog posts where they talk about a detail of the new systems, like the quality or the different mechanics on these different planets, it's hard to tell whether you're just not seeing the whole picture because they're not talking about it yet, right? Because obviously they want to trickle out the information, build the hype or whatever, or maybe they're still working on the fucking stuff because it's not done yet.
Sure.
So you don't necessarily have the full picture of how all these systems sit together. And also that's like literally in some cases where it's like they'll say, oh, you don't unlock landfill until late game or cliff explosives until late game, which requires you to go to one of these other planets. So it's like now it'll be super late game rather than the cliff explosives and landfill are more like mid game in regular Factorio. And one of the things people always bitch about in regular Factorio is how much the cliffs suck, but you can just turn them off.
Right.
But now in the expansion,
You're going to need them.
well, the cliffs are like part of the environmental challenge of these other planets. So that's why they can't give you the cliff explosives early game. They have to give it to you late game, so you can't just override the whole challenge of the DLC. But then that's going to piss off everyone, even on the starter planet, who like now you have to have the cliffs there as well.
Yeah, tough luck. You got to deal with it.
So yeah, it's like they'll say things like that where they're like, we've moved the cliff explosives way further into the tech tree. But because you don't have the full context of how everything works, it's hard to say whether that's going to be good or bad. And that seems to apply to everything they've talked about, all these other mechanics, like the lightning rods, where it's just like, but won't that just mean I'll have to put lightning rods in all my blueprints? It's like, well, yeah, kind of, except because these islands are so small, you maybe are not going to have much space to work with, so you won't just be able to use your regular blueprints. But then that's going to piss everyone off, because it's why can't I just use my blueprints that I've used every time to make the same thing?
Because there's a cliff in the way.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can't have cliff explosives to blow it up, or there's all this oil sand in the way or whatever. I think
no, we gave you a challenge.
Yeah, I like every time someone's like that reliant on blueprints. There's one YouTuber that I've seen occasionally who plays Factorio quite often, and they play it almost entirely through blueprints. They just have the set of blueprints that they've had every time, and they just import it into every new. Well, you don't even have to in Factorio. It's just default. It's just saved to your like user essentially, your library of blueprints, and they just use those every time. It's like, I mean, yes, that's technically fine for Factorio when you've solved the challenges, because you're not going to solve it in a different way. There's only so many that you can't really, once you've made the good blueprints, yes, that's fine. You're obviously going to use them. That's why mods exist and stuff, right? To give you those different challenges.
Sure, yeah.
So now that we're coming to the expansion, which is basically that, it is just space exploration, the mod, but now for real. You shouldn't be able to use all your blueprints. You should actually have to do some work and design new things. That's kind of the point.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah, it's a bit different in this case, though, right? Because your old blueprints do technically still work, but there's things in the way. So, like, even if you can't just make a new blueprint, right, for all cases.
Well, yeah, that is the sort of problem, is that, like, because of the randomly generated terrain or whatever, you won't just be able to make a big block and just shove it. Or, well, you might be able to if you can find the space to do it, but it won't be like you can just copy and paste the huge factory as easily. It's going to be... That is what some people are more complaining about, is the idea that everything is going to be spaghetti now. No more main bus, the old classic way of running Factorio. Now you're going to have to spaghetti everything, and everything is going to have to be carefully made to fit into the precise shapes of these islands of land or whatever, which some people are less agreeable to. But
so again, it's just another chance.
Well, yes, but like that manually making everything is why blueprints exist, right? Because like you do just want to copy and paste at a certain point, and if it is that much manual work to have to adjust everything to fit into every space. That kind of is why not having blueprints is why Satisfactory was annoying before they eventually decided to put their system of blueprints in. Where it's like when you've got to build 20 of the exact same thing by hand, and in Satisfactory's case it is the exact same thing because there's no restrictions on like stuff getting in the way. You just have to manually do it, and that sucks. And that's why blueprints exist.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. I guess maybe the scale of Factorio it's a bit different, but I'm just sort of thinking, what's the equivalent I've had recently? Say, oh yeah, how often do I actually use auto build in Tears of the Kingdom? It's like not all that often.
Yeah, well, that's a different problem in that game. That's because the vehicles aren't actually that useful in Tears of the Kingdom. Unfortunately, not as useful as you'd want them to be, at least. So that was demos, and then mainly all I've actually been playing, apart from some Derg and Rocket League and stuff, was just a ton more Dyson Sphere program. Getting into the real actual late game.
Yeah.
Although saying that I'm getting into the real actual late game, it's like I've finally started building the third Dyson Sphere. The actual number 3. Although this one I specifically made like much bigger, which means it's taking a long time because I actually don't produce that many rockets per minute or whatever to actually build the thing. And that's something that I do need to scale up, but then I'm in the midst of like, I think rockets might be the next thing I do scale up, but I've just sort of finished scaling up science, the science factory. Which,
the science factory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like that was, that was this is the thing that I haven't got to the point in Dyson Sphere program where I have made all the blueprints, where it's like now I am getting to the point where it's like now I just have the blueprints for each segment of the science factory that you can just paste onto a planet and then just build a new version of it. And it's all nicely, load balanced. So you paste 2 green segments and 1 purple segment, and then those make 6 of each color of science. And then that's it. You just copy that over and over.
A color of science.
But yeah, I started building the third Dyson Sphere basically to make antimatter, because that's the most energy intensive process, obviously. So I was like, I need to basically have one star system that almost the only point of it is just to make antimatter. So it's got to have a hugely expensive and power capacity Dyson Sphere, and then like the planet is just going to make antimatter because antimatter is used in the final tier of science. So you need a ton of it. And it can also like power your base, I guess, but I rarely use that because you have all these Dyson Spheres. Because you can build a Dyson Sphere in every star system.
Yeah.
It is sort of useful to use the antimatter for like mining outposts if you don't want to build an entire Dyson Sphere just to power a mining base. You just use the artificial stars instead, which is just a power plant building basically. But it's powered by the antimatter. But yeah.
But No Man's Sky taught me that antimatter was easy to make.
Well, I mean, it is pretty easy to make. Oh, okay. Like, you just collect the photons from the Dyson Sphere ray transmitters and then just split it into matter and antimatter. That's it. You just need a bunch of particle collider buildings that use a lot of power themselves, which, again, why you need the Dyson Sphere. You need a shit ton of power to make the photons. You need a shit ton of power to run the buildings to turn the photons into antimatter. Somehow. Unspecified science.
This is going to bring out my ignorance on antimatter. So it's like, presumably, right? Like, I know games simplify this to just call it just antimatter, right? But does this mean you get like, because it's just matter? Does that mean you get like anti-equivalent of anything, like anti-elements?
Well, yeah,
yeah.
But like, even in games like the Dyson Sphere program, where it's obviously the ridiculous science, they're still only basically making anti-hydrogen. Right. They're not making anything more complicated than that. Maybe because there's not really anything, like, even if you could make whole anti-molecules or whatever, what would you do with it? You do the same thing you always do with antimatter, which is just mash it into regular matter and get a bunch of energy.
Yeah, I guess
It's just energy storage then, in
Yeah,
that sense.
basically. Especially in this game, where you are literally pulling the energy out of the Dyson sphere and converting it into antimatter, essentially.
I guess my question would be like, if you were living in a universe that was like a nega universe where actually you're the antimatter,
could you tell the difference? I think no might be the answer. I think
would the anti-elements behave the same
way?
Well,
I think the answer is actually not even. You don't even need to be in a different universe. If you're talking to an alien that's far away in our universe, you wouldn't be able to tell whether they were made of antimatter or not.
Yeah, which they could be. It's just very unlikely, right?
Yeah,
but they could be a whole galaxy made of antimatter, as long as it doesn't run into any matter.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so I built this third Dyson sphere. I deliberately made this one extra big because I was like, obviously I need the power source, but I also built it around like a blue giant, so it's already making extra energy. Although, I think I've mentioned this before about Dyson Sphere Program. It's dumb because like the bigger you build the sphere, the more energy it makes, which doesn't make any sense. Because like that's not how that works.
Yeah, sure.
You're still capturing the exact same amount of energy because it's a star, and you're capturing all the energy coming off it.
I mean, I guess it's implying that your energy capturing equipment isn't good enough to capture all the energy hitting it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like. If you were thinking about it in a more realistic way, it's like if you built a really small one, it would be real difficult because the amount of energy per like square inch or whatever would be so much higher.
Sure, yeah.
So it'd be more difficult to manage.
You'd need some hella gear.
But yeah, you can. The fact that the bigger the sphere is, it just gives you more power is slightly weird.
Mm.
But yeah, I deliberately built this one big. I think I may have even built it too big, even though I was intending to build it big. Like it's taking a long time to build, and it's also like so many fucking rockets to make it, and also it's making way more power than I need for the antimatter that I'm making already, and it's only the frame. Like there's none of the actual solar panel parts in there yet, because you get some energy just from the frame parts. They include solar panels, I guess. But yeah, I built that is my third sphere, and that also has finally like confirmed that the enemies do aggro on the energy coming off the sphere, like in proportion to the amount of energy. Like the enemies in this system are aggroing much faster than the enemies in my home system that I was using as an experiment, because I built a tiny sphere there just to basically maintain that base while I'm not there. Like it puts out the power to power that entire system, but it's like there's virtually nothing happening over there, so it can be really small. And that has slowly been aggroing those enemies, but like in this system, the enemies are aggroing all the time. And this is also, it's sort of a race now between my starter system that's been doing this for the whole game versus this new system, but they're both depleting the fleets of the enemy base. And I think they might run out at pretty much exactly the same time. So I might be able to clear both of those hives. See what that's like. See what the actual clearing of the hive is once the fleet's out of the way. I still haven't actually tried clearing a hive without grinding down the fleet. I basically have never actually fought a hive in any way. I did it that one time as an experiment in a save that I didn't keep, and then haven't done it since because I haven't needed to. But I guess I am reaching the point where like my main science system, I'm kind of using all of those planets, not like fully, but I'm using all the main resources of each of the different planets, like the one that has the organic crystals and the one that has oil or whatever. So I'm starting to drain those fast enough that I'm thinking about maybe I need to start importing stuff from another star system over, but then there's enemies in all of those. So at some point I'm going to have to deal with them. Actually fight.
Deal with it.
So I've built a massive pile of ships that I can shove in my backpack. As you do. See how that goes.
My ship sack.
Yeah. The thing is, I haven't actually, because I haven't attacked the enemy, the space enemy at any point since that very early test. I don't know if I've like super outclassed them in the tech tree, because obviously now that I'm in the super late game, you've researched the regular tech tree, but at the end of like the upgrade tech tree, there's basically infinite research where you just get a percentage bonus, but you can keep repeating that over and over and the cost just goes up or whatever. So I've already researched my, I don't know, energy weapon damage up to like 220% or whatever. And it's like, how far do you have to go to be like super outclassing the enemies, and how much do the enemies level up with you? Or, I mean, I guess they have their own levels, so you can see like the hive in this system is level 7 or whatever because you haven't interacted with it, so it's only been passively leveling up. Whereas the one in the system where I'm grinding the enemies for resources, they're up to like level 20 or whatever. And how does that affect does that even affect the damage of the enemy ships? I guess I could maybe click on one and see its stats, but that's really awkward to do while you're in space because you're constantly moving in it. So it's like kind of difficult to highlight the thing you're trying to highlight and then click on it. Although if you can manage to click on it, the tooltip just stays.
Okay, right.
So it's like once you actually do manage to click on the thing you want to look at, you're good.
Just mash in the general area.
Well, I mean, that's fine if it's something like a ship where there's hundreds of them. If you're trying to like highlight the exact dead center main building of the hive, that can be kind of difficult. Where there's all this other crap. But yeah, I've definitely actually really in the late game now. Just trying to grind out some of the late game achievements mainly. Because it's like, this is the furthest I've ever got, but now I kind of have to commit to go all the way to these late game achievements. Where it's like, make an entire blue belt's worth of universe science per minute or whatever it is.
Sorry, what? A blue belt of universe science. Is this like some kind of like extra karate level that I'm not aware of?
Like blue conveyor belt, the fastest tier of belt.
No, it's not like you've upgraded to blue belt of like of transport foo.
No. But yeah, those are the kind of super late game achievements. I think weirdly the most annoying of those super late game grind achievements is going to be like upgrading your shield to 25 meters or whatever, because like in the tech tree the shield upgrade tree gives you like +1 meter per level or whatever, so obviously you're going to have to do 25 levels, but like the regular research ends at level 7 and then you've got to go from 7 to 25 on the infinite research scaling, so to even get to level 25 is going to take so fucking long. I'm at like level 11 or 12, I think, and like all the infinite research that I've been doing has reached about 11 or 12 because I've been keeping them more or less even. So I'm this far into the late game and I'm still only halfway towards getting that shield upgrade that you need for that achievement.
But it's probably not halfway.
Yeah, because it's scaling up
the
scale. I mean, obviously I am also scaling up. Like now I have these blueprints for the science base, I can just relatively quickly increase the amount of science I'm outputting. So that will compensate somewhat. But that one achievement seems a bit ridiculous. I don't know why there's I don't know even why your shield gets bigger. Like, what is the point of that? I mean, I guess if you're standing next to a building, it's protected because it's inside your shield. Yeah, I guess. But on a global scale, that's not super helpful. And the AI of your units isn't smart enough or to do anything smart, like stay inside your shield radius or anything, which is really dumb because like when you're using your ground forces, you have attack drones and you have precision drones, and it implies in the tooltip where like the precision drones can shoot from further away, so they don't have to get in the combat, except they're not programmed to do that, so they just rush into the combat anyway, like all of your drones do. Whereas if they were smart, precision drones would sit inside your shield bubble and then that would help, right? But they're not.
I guess it's to encourage you to be active a little bit and move in to help your drones.
Well, sure, but then they're constantly like flying crazily around enough that that's not even going to, even if your shield was huge, I don't think that would really help much. You would actually have that many of them inside your shield at any moment. So yeah, I don't really understand what the point of that upgrade is. It's a bit weird, but I have to do 25 of it. God damn. And apart from that, there's just like, the typical super late game achievements of like upload 10 million universe sites or whatever, of which I've done the achievement for 1 million. So I'm like 1/10 of the way to that as well. This is where the real scaling happens.
Just got to click that cookie a few more times.
Yeah, pretty much.
Get that auto clicker.
I mean, it would be nice if it was a bit, if there was more ways you could scale your shit up. Because, I mean, I made these blueprints for the site.
I really don't want to do that.
Well,
I don't want to scale my shit up. That's a bad idea.
Since they added the enemies, they did add like one more tier of buildings, or some of the buildings, I guess. Like you can get the 4th tier of manufacturing machine if you use the special enemy drops to make it, which is like 3 times as fast as a regular one or whatever. But that doesn't really help because at a certain point in Dinosphere Program, when you're occupying the entire planet, you don't really need to worry about space. You just go to another planet and just copy the entire planet's worth of buildings onto a new planet. It's like you're not going to worry about whether you can fit 10 of these buildings or 12 of the next building up when you're building like 500. That kind of scaling doesn't really help super much any longer. It's only convenient because the way I have my blueprint set up is it's like a segment of a planet. Like the planets are split into grid lines.
They sort of change, don't they, across the...
Well, they change, up as you go up towards the North or South Pole, the grid changes. But if you build like 5 segments wide at the equator, that lines up all the way up. So if you build a series of 5 segment blocks all the way around the equator of the planet, that fills out to a point at the North Pole, basically. So you can design your blueprints like that, where everything fits in this 5 segment width, and then you can just stamp them down all the way around the planet.
Right, and there are just gaps at the equator, like when you do that for other things, presumably?
Well, the way I have those blueprints set up is the equator is where basically the import stations are. So that's where all the towers are, where the ships dock to drop off the resources. And then you just build the segments away from the equator in that way. Speaking of late game achievements, I'm also progressing towards the pave the entire planet achievement.
God.
That's not super hard because landfill isn't that difficult to make. It's only like steel and rock. But, that's quite a lot of landfill. And you just have to go around.
At least steel and rock.
Yes, you'd think it might just be rock. That would...
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Or cement, at least.
Yeah. But yes, you cover the entire planet and you get the achievement that's just called I saw this in a movie once. Because it looks kind of like a Death Star, I guess. If you make it that colour, I guess. Well, I would say you could make it look more like a Death Star, but I mean, without the... Well, I suppose your buildings could make it look a bit more like the dish or whatever if you arranged them neatly. But that achievement maybe doesn't make as much sense any longer since they allowed you to colour the landfill or foundation, as it's called. So you can actually you can draw whatever you want on this planet using the landfill if you want. I make my landfill the colour of the planet that's underneath it just because it looks better. The sandy coloured planet I'm on is just covered in yellow landfill now. Not quite fully, but I'm not quite done with that yet.
That's so weird. I mean, it's weird that that's an option.
Well, it's a weird system because, like, when the terrain of the planets doesn't matter. Like, realistically, you're only just building on a perfectly flat sphere because every time you place a building, it automatically flattens it down.
Sure.
And the only reason you need to use the landfill is to fill in holes. Like, if it's a mound, it automatically gets flattened down to level. But if it's a hole, you have to expend the landfill to bring it up. So, like, that's all that mechanic is. So you're always just building on a perfectly flat sphere.
Just putting things in holes.
Yep, put the dirt in the hole.
Fill the ocean.
Yeah. Except don't, because you need water as a resource. Or at least save some of the ocean on some of the planets.
Okay.
And with that, that's Zach's ecological manifesto. Save
Advice.
some of the ocean.
Don't use it all up.
Well, I mean, it's not like you can even use stuff. It's always an infinite source. It's just don't landfill it all.
And then it will stop being a source.
That's Dinosphere Program. I guess I'm going to continue playing that until I get these goddamn achievements done. Or my system dies, whichever comes first. Which you'd hope would be the achievement thing. But it is running not as good as it was. I've definitely started to reach the point where it's like, I mean, it's probably more the game than my system. But, like, it's definitely... Okay, it's mainly, like saving, which I guess makes sense, because, the more hundreds of buildings there are, the more data it has to deal with. But yes, it's definitely taking noticeable lags when it's saving now. Even on an SSD.
Let's conservate.
Okay, that's the end of the program. The
Yep.
Dyson Sphere program.
The only free Dyson Sphere program.
Only three.
Only three, yeah.
Most civilizations are content with one, but no, we've got to expand.
I mean,
all
it's
the way to
technically,
three for
I guess
the
it's
end game.
technically more like 2.5. One of them barely counts as a sphere.
A civilization in your case? Like, are there like
Well, the story of
inhabitants?
the story of Dyson Sphere program is like the civilization became virtual or whatever. They moved into computers, and
They're sublimed.
they're just somewhere else, but you're sending them all the energy. So your job is to go out and build all these Dyson spheres to be able to expand the computerized civilization wherever that is.
Oh. Maybe don't conservate.
No, I mean you definitely don't give a damn about any like all these planets that clearly have life on them. It's just like fuck that shit. Gonna pave that over. Don't really care. No other like intelligent life or anything. No, well, I mean, unless you count the enemies, but they are just you again. Basically, the story of them is that like they were the first attempt at making the Dyson Sphere program, but they went rogue because they were just AI rather than controlled by an actual person, as your mech is sort of implied to be, or an actual consciousness of a person, I suppose.
Right, yeah.
Not an actual person even at this point. But the enemies were just dumb AI, and then they went rogue and did the thing that AIs tend to do, where they just try and expand, which is what you're trying to do, except they're doing it badly. That's that.
And that's you, is it, Zeg?
Yep.
I think that might be a cast. I think we're just about out of time.
Not any Wonder update?
No, I have no wonder. You'll be left to wonder until the next time we wonder.
But you've got to wonder so you can be dunder.
It's true.
Wonder dunder.
I'll leave you to wonder, and then we'll soon be dunder.
Do not blunder on your way to being
I'll
dunder.
try not to blunder on my way when I'm wending my way to wonder. All right.
That sounds like a good fantasy game name, doesn't it? Like Wonder Wend.
No, I don't think it does. It sounded better when you're wending your way to wonder, not Wonder Wend.
Wendler.
Or The Last Airbender. Is that coming back? Like, is there a new Netflix season of that?
Yeah. Anything that was ever successful, they've got to remake it.
Yeah.
Even if it was perfectly fine already.
I mean, was The Last Airbender fine? Like, isn't the cartoon good, but that film
Well, yes.
pants?
One of them was fine.
Cartoon was good. Very good for something made for
Nickelodeon.
8-year-olds.
Yeah. I'm sort of tempted to watch both. Like the series and the terrible film.
Well, I mean, obviously, if you're going to watch one of them, you have to watch the other one.
Yeah.
Mm.
Sort of tempted. But then, that's a lot of TV that I'm already not watching.
Yeah, if you want to watch some kids' TV, I think it's pretty good. It's on Netflix.
Yeah. Something a little bit, have one in the room while Master's there.
Yeah.
Not too much gore. I've been watching a little bit. Of that Cyberpunk. I've watched the first 3 episodes of that Cyberpunk anime.
Is this the crap TV that you were talking about at the start of the podcast that you did want to talk about?
Yeah, well, it's all right. I'm not taken with it yet. I mean, it's very. It does the whole like it's the cyberpunk world. They've kind of got that down for all the good and all the bad. Mostly bad. It's not a pleasant place.
Well, no. That's kind of the point of cyberpunk, though.
Yeah. It's all right. I'll watch a bit more of it. It's not one of those. It's definitely not one of those shows I can watch with other people around. It's a bit cyberpunky in places,
Yeah.
and everything that entails.
We know the tone of that game.
Oh yeah.
Alrighty, check out our YouTube channel. We've got Sonic Adventure 2 Part 3 Buttwave for you.
Well, part 4's up there now, isn't it?
Part 4 up there? Oh,
Probably.
even more.
Yeah. Unless I just forgot to hit the go button. I'm pretty sure it's there.
The whole sequence of Sonic Adventure 2. And
Still working on part 5. That will come soon.
yeah, that'll be the conclusion of the dark story, and the rest,
the
the
last.
end,
The last.
the last. Okay, so you can enjoy the last, and then
The Last of Us. Except it won't be, because we'll do more videos. Yeah, it's the last. It's the last. It wasn't the last of them, was it? Even Shadow comes back. Anyway, spoilers.
Yeah, the last Sonic for now, but we'll do other videos of other stuff. And we'll also be back with another Saladcast in 2 weeks' time. So we will catch you then. Goodbye, listeners.
Goodbye.